anuanom ne adɔfoɔ wɔ Christ Jesus mu yɛsɛn yɛma mo ha de mo ba dwumadie a yɛato no din the hour of prayerism anaasɛ the hour of prayerism whereby we look at we exegete the scriptures, or we base our hermeneutics, from the perspective of prayerism and as a covenant eschatology. And see, so yeah, that is how in fact, we hold the paradigm, with regards to hermeneutics, okay, from the perspective of prayerism. See, sana yɛhwɛ yɛn prayer no anaasɛ preterist no saa na yɛhwɛ nneɛma wɔ hɔ. Na me a me ne wo kɛsɛ yɛfrɛ me onua Solomon Bedu a mewɔ Brabaji Kofodua Church of Christ. Na for some time now no yɛhwɛ anaasɛ yɛhwɛ topic bi a yɛ title no, the house made without hands. The house made without hands. Ɛno na yɛhwɛ anaasɛ yɛhwɛ saa adeɛ no, this particular topic, because you believe it was certain eschatological significance. Nti yɛhwɛ na yɛakyerɛkyerɛ saa nsɛm no mu because especially yeah, two previous videos na yɛyɛ no yɛhwɛ biribi anaasɛ share this house built without hands from Second Corinthians chapter 5 verse 1 down to 4 no. Paul said, when this earthly tent or when this earthly house, this tent is destroyed, is now looking for the building that is going to come from heaven, which is made with which was not made with hands, but it is now rather coming from God. Now, says this particular text, say yeah, ten funerals, and I yet so most of the preachers and I say as of for no quote sa text way now at the bring it hope to the bereaving family say eventually we are or we will shed off this physical skin, okay, at an assumed future coming of Christ, whereby this geophysical material creation is going to be dissolved. Now so that interpretation is not correct because Paul never had in mind our physical skin, our physical body. Okay, one link earthly house and that's a distant into our this physical material body. But said I kind of a previous video, it was rather the old covenant body of Moses. That is what Paul had in mind. That is what he termed that that covenant or that system as what earthly house, and it was particularly the Jerusalem temple. So now they were looking for the destruction of the Jerusalem temple. No, I'm not sure Jerusalem temple never then ebe few so that the new covenant system, the church will also come or will be established. That is also Hebrew chapter 9, also Hebrew chapter 9 concerning the time of reformation and that's a time of restoration, or Kabibi, so far as that is Hebrew chapter 9, verse 6 to 10. So far as old covenant system, that temple, old covenant temple, had validity, there's no way the new covenant church will come to play or will be established. So what it means is that the time of reformation, that is the time of resurrection and the time of that's the time of resurrection, that is forgiveness of sins, and the time of perfection. Perfection is also resurrection, will be the time when the old covenant system has been abolished. Ayana Bibrina you almost said the old covenant system was terminated, at the cross, but that is not true. And it was the curse of the law. Galatians chapter 3, verse 13, it was the curse of the law that was nailed to the cross, but not the law itself. The law the law lived on until AD 70 when the Jerusalem temple was annulled or was destroyed. Okay, that was the time of the church and the time of the second coming of Christ and the time of restoration and the time of reformation. Okay, Acts chapter 3, verse 18 down to 29, cancer a seminal error. All right, see, yɛnkyɛn ho no yɛbɛhwɛ ɛnɛ topic no ɛnɛ that house made without hands a Paul kaeɛ no yɛbɛbɛhwɛ biribi ɛwɔ Hebrew chapter 11 no ɛnɛ ɛhɔ na yɛbɛhwɛ because kasa bi wɔ hɔ a ɛwɔ semblance to Second Corinthians chapter 5 verse 1 following, in terms of, that house which is not built with hands. Nti, ɛbɛkan Hebrew chapter 11 no, na yɛhu ɛwɔ hɔ so asɛm a ɔka ɛwɔ hɔ. Na yɛhu amahia understanding when it comes to that building or that house made without hands. Na yɛhu say indeed this is what, Paul had in mind. Ɛwɔ Second Corinthians chapter 5, saa na ɛte wɔ hɔ. Nti moma yɛnkan ɛhɔ no. Yɛbɛdi nkan yɛbɛhwɛ biribi ɛwɔ Hebrew chapter 11 verse 1 na yɛbɛhwɛ adeɛ bi ɛwɔ hɔ. Now, sɛdeɛ ɛkan no wɔ Second Corinthians chapter 5 no, that house that is not made with hands, it was Paul's eschatological hope, just as the prophet what the prophet also had that, that hope of what entering into that house that is not made with hands, Yɛbɛhwɛ biribi kakra wɔ hɔ, and so it was the hope. Bible says hope is something that is not what that is not seen. Okay, so Paul and we are in a letter no Second Corinthians 5, that was somewhere AD 54, AD 56, he was now looking, you see, he had the hope of the coming house of God, which is not made with what? Which is not made with hands. So it was anticipatory. As at the time of Second Corinthians 5, so it was their hope. Yeah, it was their hope, to enter into, that house that is not made with hands. And see, say now, Yanka said all this while, and I said at that moment, at the time of the writing of the Second Corinthians chapter 5, Bible made it said that kingdom, was under construction. That house that is not made with hands, it was still under construction, being supervised by the Holy Spirit, which was manifested, in apostolic work. Sana na they were being built up until say ɔmo nyinaa bɛyɛ dɛn, ɔmo nyinaa gyidie na ɛbɛyɛ ɛbaako and all these things. So okay, say First Peter chapter 2 verse 5 and Ephesians chapter 4 verse 11 up to 14, and nyinaa bɛyɛ say all this while no between so kind. First Corinthians chapter 13, verse 10 to 12. And all this while, that system or that house that is not made with hands, was still under construction. So it was anticipatory. So eventually, you who time a be then you complete year. Okay, you complete year. Emma nipa yɛ den ɛkɔ mu ɛkonya nkwa ɛwɔ hɔ. Now, let us see young kind saa way no. What kind Hebrew chapter 11 verse 1 now? The kind of say, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of the things not seen. Okay, so Paul was looking, for that building to come, that house to come. Okay, at that time he was looking for, so he had that hope, okay, of eventually entering into that house. Into Philippians chapter 1, verse 23 now, Paul even and for dead. Now Opesa Obed Obewu, because when him so who is going to go there. Okay, he was going to go there, and I said when you're far better. But it was also necessary for him to remain in the in this material body, okay, in order to administer to the church. Okay. And so that was the hope also for by this, so that was the hope that he had. Okay, so I hope no then unyaye kopim say asɔre yɛ dɛn ɛbaeɛ nti saa na ɛte wɔ hɔ nti now yɛhwɛ the faith of the patriarchs or the faith of Abraham. Almost know what was they looking for. Nti the same Hebrew chapter 11 no yɛbɛjump aba 18 yɛbɛkan 18 to 16 no na yɛakyerɛkyerɛ nneɛma bi mu kakra ɛwɔ hɔ. Ɔsɛ verse 8 in Hebrew chapter 11 verse 8 no say by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he will receive as an inheritance. Now they were looking for inheritance. So kind Romans chapter 4 verse 18 Abraham no almost say he is dead. Now Israel for no, okay, though he has a leon. Now Abraham was leon of his line of Israel, and the line him. Now they were more concerned about inheritance, because of inheritance, by inheritance, and no more who said they are still alive, even if they are dead. And no, and who said they are alive. You see, they kept straight genealogies. Genealogy, way mommy, way papa, way new anyway, because the inheritance, who are so be better, be diwadi, and the man, and no man who say, indeed, saa nipa no ɔyɛ dɛn he is still alive ɛwɔ no but wɔn a mɛwɔ ɔmo sɛ you are dead saa na Abraham ɔmo yɛ dɛn ɔmo hu no because ɔnwo no na ɔmo sɛ more or less he was dead because oni obi a ɔbɛyɛ inherit no after his dead nti Israelfoɔ no deɛ na especially ɔmo mba bɛrima no nti yɛ sɛ Israel mu no sɛ ɔwɔ ɔba bɛrima first male born child yɛ sɛ ɔyɛ blessing ɔyɛ nhyira because ɔmo ehu sɛ ɔbɛyɛ dɛn ɔbɛ inherit wei no so they have this inheritance okay they have this inheritance nti so okay I believe Luke chapter 20 now verse 34 ɛkɔ no a ɔmo test Jesus sɛ so obi ware na sɛ wanware ɔne ne yere no anwo no so owu a ne nua bɛba bɛfa ɔbaa no so ɔno so ewu a ɛka sɛ ɔno so ane no anwo a saa nti obisa sɛ at resurrection no what will happen at the resurrection? I think Luke chapter 20 verse 30 no. What will happen at the resurrection? Because obi inherit no. Now the ayana ebinom say preterism and as a preterism no. Yes, a resurrection has already occurred. Yes, resurrection has occurred. Okay, that in fact we are not here to talk about resurrection, but it has what resurrection has occurred. Okay, if the parousia of Christ, if the second coming of Christ occurred in connection with the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, that means the gathering of Matthew chapter 24 verse 31, that gathering is resurrection. Okay, Second Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 1, our gathering together with him, so that gathering is resurrection. Paul Romans chapter 13 verse 11 said, now is the time. See, that's the time stage in his day. Of course, Paul was living at the time of the eschaton. In fact, he was living at the time of the end of Israel. The resurrection will occur at the end of the age. According to Daniel chapter 13, Daniel chapter 12, verse 13. Paul said, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 11, said he was living at the end of the eschaton or at the end of the age. Okay, so I said now is the time. Okay, okay, Romans chapter 13 or Kasasem concerning resurrection or Kasasem or in fact Hades a spiritual place. So whatever happened there cannot be seen or cannot be witnessed by the naked eye. And this all kind so they kind of verse 13 or Kasembi we are not looking at resurrection. Now I say and do this knowing the time. Now the time here is Kairos. Greek time here Kairos. And then just said the appointed time. Daniel was told to go and rest until the time of the end, whereby he is going to resurrect for his inheritance. You sit down on your day, Daniel, the time, on your son conquer so and bring away and ye and bring away. That's the time of the end of Israel history. Rise no Abenian inheritance. This was the inheritance that they were looking for. Inheritance, that was the kingdom. So that even the patriarchs, they had, but we will come there anyway. And so I say, now doing this, knowing the time, that is the appointed time. Until that time, like I said, Daniel son Concordano, Paul say, this is the time for now knowing that this is the appointed time. That now, see, it's not our time. Now, in Paul's time, now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. The night is far spent. Now the night is characteristics of Judaism. Okay, Judaism, that is the age of Moses. Okay, that evil age, that dark age. Okay, now the night is far spent and the day is at hand. The day is representative of what? The new covenant age. Okay, so Paul do baby also mama say or high by children of light. Okay, not the dark children of dark of Moses, but we should be at that or high light ember. That is First Thessalonians chapter 5. Okay, one so the night is fast spent and the day is at hand. Therefore, let us cast off the works of the darkness. That is Judaism. Those among your man cast it and let us put on the armor of light. That is to put on the new covenant in nobody. So that resurrection was right down there in the first century. Okay, it was just now, it was appointed time. That time has now come for that resurrection to occur. And see, Sana and she said, so then I kind of Hebrew chapter 11, Hebrew chapter 11, verse 8, so they kind now you come about the inheritance. See, inheritance and Sana say Luke chapter 20, 30 then now Jesus opportunity say in the old covenant system, no more they are interested in inheritance. saa inheritance wɔ sɛ wodi wei ade wei wodi wei ade wei wodi wei adeɛ ɛnti na ɛba ho yɛ dɛn ehia ɔmo paa genealogy no na deɛ ɔde kept that genealogy. But now the all kind of honor say in the new covenant at the resurrection, you see, we are dead to sin. We are, we resurrected by true forgiveness of sin in baptism. So that separation, that rift between you and God. Isaiah chapter 59, verse 1. But yet, the one nature one, when I saw them, ye nyan with you, one more day, abanquam. What does a Christ say? I don't know, resurrection and, resurrection and life, or another resurrection and life. That is uh, John chapter 11, verse 25, 26, and his resurrection and life. Okay, so obi owo mu bia on yeden on even so who physical kwa you say what resurrection. So how are we know and John chapter 8 verse 51 to say those in Christ are not going to dead. They are not going to die. So where then a resurrection whereby we are not going to die. You understand that? See that you have to time will come a better resurrection. No? And it's our inheritance, it was inheritance related to the kingdom. No, okay. The new thing, not Jesus, you kind of Luke chapter 20, and he said, in the resurrection, okay, sa inheritance, sa system, na them, and juma, hobby. And besides that, he was even talking about the Nazarene, or the Levirate, marriage, Jew for our warrior or them, or canonka gave for one some another Christian for our warrior, and as a we bush him our warrior, yes, our sister, our binoka. Now you wait for a who assem in an orcasa. We call I believe Deuteronomy chapter 5 now, in the background there, then Luke chapter 20 in the background, what to be says, a whole Kukuti was specifically talking about Jewish word marriage, not our current man. John, you say, a pamphufrumono, sir, the inheritance, and as a sir, and because they say we have the kingdom, which is of no respect of anyone, the tribe, Bibia side, anyway, yeah, deba, Christ Jesus, Ephesians chapter 3 verse 10 kono saa na ɛden ɛte ɛwɔ hɔ because we all one we have Christ as our light as our inheritance saa na ɛhɔ na ɛden ɛte ɛwɔ hɔ nti sɛ wohwɛ deɛ ɛkɔ no a na saa na ɛte wɔ hɔ so Abraham received which he will receive as an inheritance, okay, and he went out that is Hebrew chapter 11 no verse 8 kono inheritance, and he went out knowing where he was going. Now, by faith, he dwelt in a land of promise, as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents, dwelling in tent with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same what promise. So they were in that tent. So that they were in that tabernacle. Okay. And the Paul also say Paul also can first Second Corinthians chapter 5 verse 1 say, say omo assassin to madan this tabernacle a destroyer. Okay, so those people are all living in that tabernacle in anticipation of what? That tabernacle which is not made with what? Which is not made with hand, which is eternal. Okay, that is what they were looking for, that eternal tabernacle, but not that earthly tabernacle of what? Judaism. And today we're also dwelling in that tent. In that tent, that is that in that they were dwelling in that tent with heirs and so of the same promise. Now, for he waited for the city which has foundation, whose builder and maker is God. So they were also looking for that building, that house which is not made with what? Hands. Okay, whose foundation is not made with hands, and it is what? It is of God. So they were looking for that particular building. Okay, they wanted to move away. They wanted to move. Go and see them. So they wanted to na ɔmo pɛ sɛ ɔmo nya city no a yɛamfa nsa amfa yɛ den amfa yɛ no. Okay, at the time of dwelling in the tent, ɔmo nim sɛ saa tent when eventual, so no ɔmo nim sɛ they are going to receive that city, okay, which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. They were looking, so no ɔmo nim sɛ after the destruction of that earthly tent, they are now going to receive that. And so now, okay, Matthew chapter 8, verse 9 to 12 now. Ekasa elenke resurrection and the kingdom no together no so that was the the eschatological hope of receiving that kingdom which is not made with what? with hands. Now I say by 11, also by faith, Sarah herself also received the strength to conceive the seed, and she bore a child when she was past the age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man and blah blah blah. Now, remember verse 13, of Hebrew chapter uh 11, It's kind verse 13, I want to say. Now, this city now here can say they were looking for that city. That is the city of God. That is the kingdom or the temple. We need Arigol, our Galatians chapter 4, verse 20 to 26. Okay, that is Arigol, our and the same Hebrew, the same Hebrew chapter 12, and also Eka. Bibisa, verse 20, 22, 23. I said, but you have come to Mount Zion. So before that, I describe it, that that covenant no meaning of Mount Sinai no so no. Okay, no a foundation of the Judaism and the temple eventually into verse 22 of Hebrew chapter 12 now say, but you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God. So that is the city the patriarchs were also looking for. Okay, Hebrew chapter 11 verse 13 now I say the heavenly of the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, to an innumerable company of angels, to the general assembly and the church of the firstborn. So that house that is not made with hands, whose builder, and I said whose foundation, which has foundation, whose builder and the maker is God, was the church of the firstborn, or the church of Christ. That is, or the kingdom of Christ. That is what they were all looking for. So that is why we often, merge the resurrection and the kingdom. So the time of the kingdom is the time of resurrection, according to Second Timothy chapter 4 verse 1. And now back to Hebrew chapter 11, verse 13. Therefore, so they did not. So while they were dwelling in that tent, they did not receive that inheritance. They did not receive that promise. It was promised to them, but they saw it afar. Okay, it was far from the time. Now, Yantias is a Bible man. Say all the our promises. It was not for the time of those who prophet. It was not the time for the prophets. Okay, but for the latter day, generation. That is Daniel chapter 10 verse 14 and the First Peter chapter 1 verse 10. Okay, so they had the hope of entering into it, but it was not for their time. Okay, because everything was purpose in Christ. Ephesians chapter 1 verse 11. Well, I think Romans chapter 1 verse 11. It was all purpose in Christ. So until Christ comes, that hope cannot be what cannot be achieved or realized. And it's an I say these all died in faith, not having received the promise, but having seen them afar off. So they saw all these things, they saw it far off, were assured of them, and embraced them and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth, okay, on the land. So that is the land. So they knew that eventually they are going to enter there, they are going to go there. So this was the time when paradise had validity, because Abraham bosom was in the Hades, that component called paradise or the place of comfort. Now, their hope was to enter into the kingdom. Okay, so they were waiting for the kingdom to come. Okay, so that they will enter into it and to feast with Christ, according to Matthew chapter 8, verse 9 to 12. And to say, a kingdom naba, I names a kingdom naba, and I say, there's also a place of called Abraham bosom. I then a war kingdom, you are part of the kingdom. Now, no, Abraham, no, she says, oh, baby, I want na baby a wo baby na baby or no hwehwe no wo hobby I then a wo na wakọ ẹhọ. This thing doesn't make sense. But of course, we look at that in details. Where does the child of God goes after he or she demise, or say paradise and also or call heaven straight? We also look at that. Now, and to say the year canon, I say they embraced them and that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things, uh, declare plainly that they seek a homeland. So they were looking for that kingdom. You see, Paul, the eschatological hope, it was the same as that of the fathers. Okay, Act chapter 26, verse 6 to 8, and Act chapter um Act chapter 14, right? No. Me try there. Act chapter, yeah, Act chapter 26. Because of time, in fact, I don't know when I'm even going to. I don't know when I'm even going to. Time is going to, catch me up. But anyway, someone is here telling me, I'm really saying, well, anyway. Yeah. As I said, Paul and Apartheid, they all had the same eschatological hope, which is what that eternal, inheritance, which is the kingdom, which is that made with what no human hands. They all had the same eschatological hope. And it's also Matthew Act chapter 24, no, verse 14, 15 aka saa asɛm no ɛwɔ hɔ ɔse, but this I confess to you that according to the way which they call a sect, so I worship the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophet. Verse 15, I have hope in God, which they themselves also accept, that there will be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and unjust. That is a quote from Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. Okay, so Paul ne hope ne agyanom ne deɛ hia na yɛ the same. That is resurrection into the kingdom. So if the kingdom has come and Abraham is now in the kingdom, that means resurrection did what occurred. Now the time of the kingdom is the time of the parousia. Uh, Matthew chapter 16, verse 27, 28. Matthew chapter 24, verse 29 to 31. And 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. Ne nyinaa no a concurrent word event. So they all had the same hope of what? Entering into the eventual kingdom. Now, you share the same way. So Acts chapter 26, verse 6, 6 to 7, Paul in all standard trial said, now I stand here and I'm judged for the hope of the promise made by God to our fathers. So what was the hope? That was the hope of resurrection and the hope of what? The inheritance, the hope of resurrection into the kingdom. Paul also had the same what? The same hope, just as the fathers also had. Okay, and he so share said the kind of so share Paul ne deɛ no was second the kind of Second Corinthians now, which means the hope is what the same. Bible no ma yet says Ephesians chapter 4. But it there is one hope, there's one faith, and all this in the hope and the faith is just one hope. And more until Christopher was our one hope, and that one hope was realized in what in the first century, especially the fall of Jerusalem, And so also Paul hope also for we know that if our earthly house, this tent, is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. You see, this is the hope that the patriarchs also had. They had the same hope, and it was the promise that was given to them. They saw it far off because it was not for their time. So I say, so what kind of say? So that I kind of Hebrew chapter 11, no, I say, verse 14, Hebrew chapter 11, verse 14, I say, for those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would had opportunity to return. Verse 16 says, but now they desire a better, that is a heavenly country. Okay, Paul's heavenly country is the same hope. The same Act chapter 26, verse 6, the same hope. Act chapter 24, verse 14, 15, the same hope, the same resurrection, and the same what? Kingdom. Now we have the kingdom. Are we not a resurrected beings? We had Romans chapter 6. Or say more, say abomi and Christ say wudia, such an near bomai. Sorry. This is what spiritual what realities. Okay, so the physical immersion, okay, physical immersion point towards spiritual realities. And then bomai sorry. So that's one resurrection. There's that one resurrection. Okay, people are now here looking out for physical resurrection and all these things, which the Bible doesn't also even talk about that. That could be based in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, whether there's this physical resurrection. Heaven, and say, yeah, spiritual place. And so, better than this, our body where they call. Many one millennial guy, be millennialist guy, be like I say, there's going to be glorified physical body. Look at this. What away from that? that there's going to be glorified physical body. So we are going to go to heaven in glorified physical body. No, that is not true. Lord is Christ is, Lord, the Lord is spirit. Okay, John chapter 4. The Lord is spirit. Saa na ɛte wɔ hɔ. Nti ɔnyɛ physical being. Ebetumi aka sɛ there's going to be that physical resurrection as people would anticipate. In any way, in any case, that resurrection did occur in the first century. Saa na ɛte wɔ hɔ. It is all kind 16 now. So that make no. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared a city for them. Okay, He has prepared a city for them. So at this time, no, the church was there, the kingdom was there, but it has not yet what come, because the old covenant system, the old covenant temple that is of earthly material, this tent, was still standing. Okay, and he only feel hono and son they are prepared na them a buyer. Jesus can say, "Me call John chapter 14. Me call me say baby I then ama mo na wi a me ba be den me ba be famo na baby am won na ho na mo be den mo so mo be call." That is the that relationship. So it was the kingdom that Jesus was going to what? Jesus was going to prepare. John chapter 14, a marriage, language. If you are familiar with Israel for a warrior, said the Oben said Jesus was talking about that marriage. Okay, was going to Deuteronomy chapter 22. Say about warrior Israel near. Beman Baba be two said the say two you come and expose the lady. No, because I try about 3 days. 3 weeks no kwesịsị ne fie ọbɛkɔ ne bɛrima no bɛkɔ n'agya fie na wakɔ kwesịsị owie a waba abɛfa ne yere no ayɛ den akɔ hɔ nti ɔbɛfa no kɔ asa na ɔmo abɛyɛ den saa marriage no Jesus Christ was going to prepare that city and to come and marry the church and to be with the church. So now we have the kingdom prepared, the kingdom is matured, the kingdom is established, and Christ came in his kingdom, that is upon his throne. Ɛwɔ AD 70 when Jerusalem fell. So now it's ushering the marriage. See, ushering the marriage. It is all kind of Revelation chapter 19 verse 7 now. 7 and 9 now. May you say I said bride and I for night I am ready now. That was so I am ready for the marriage. Therefore, blessed are those who are being called to the marriage supper of what? Of the Lamb. It is Anna at say so share the same Hebrew chapter 11 share verse I believe 39 to 39 to 40 say, and all these, having obtained a good testimony through faith, did not receive the promise because it was not yet what time. Did not receive the promise. God, having provided something better for us, that they should not be made perfect apart from what us. So they did not receive it, but it was in their future that was realized in AD 70 when the old system was destroyed for the new paving way for the new one to be established. Nti sana ete ewo ho. So Abraham ne omo patriarch they were also looking for that house that is not built with what house. Nti ebe se aba makwa mu biem na ye another video so e de aba e bia ebe hwe bibi ewo ebia Hebrew chapter 12 also and also concerning that house that is not made with hands so na you say obenya understanding where they can ya. It is on subscribe here o click the hour of prayerism, the hour of preterism. So the binum kanu the hour of preterism. O click o YouTube no click saa we no our channel search bar no mu a ye beba me see symbol no ye capital H ye use bibia fan ye answer, but with time we will improve the features. And it's a H in the bar now was subscribing to so subscribe ya videos say oh nyina obenye bia dem ahwe question which me leave questions so ho na you be react to the questions ni na ati yakopon ka ye nya ho na do ti amen.